Good afternoon, everyone. This is our final session for the day. I'd like to introduce to you Shane Appleby, who's the dam administrator at the Queensland Art Gallery of Modern Art, up in our wonderful northern state of Australia. Shane's going to take you through his how to build dam bridges and not walls. Thanks for your presentation today, Shane, and over to you. And we'll be back with questions. Don't forget the Q&A panel in the top right-hand corner of your platform. And I'll be back online 5 minutes before the end of the session to ask those questions of Shane. Over to you, Shane.
Thanks, Andrew, and welcome everybody. Hopefully you can see my screen and everybody is actually, let me just... Andrew, can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. Okay. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge our traditional owners, of which the land on which the Queensland Art Gallery and Gallery of Modern Art stands, and recognise the creative contribution that first Australians make to the art and culture of this country. So for those of you who don't know, QAGOMA actually is a made-up word that basically incorporates the Queensland Art Gallery and Gallery of Modern Art, as you can see here on the left and right. And we're located in the beautiful arts precinct along the Brisbane River in Queensland. Now, as most GLAM organisations around the world, we are heavy content creators. So as you can see here that we've actually got multiple departments that do create different works. We've got here our two studios with Miranda and Natasha, who are shooting the beautiful artworks, but then we've also got two cinemas as well. And then we've got a Cinematech team that do video editing for different departments. We've got the library that actually has various different digital assets as well that are born analog. That they get digitized, as you can see here with some glass slides. We have, for every exhibition that comes through, there's always usually a publication that gets created, and that's what I'm going to focus on a little bit today, to talk about breaking down those silos. And then with them, obviously they work with the curators and other departments, especially the graphic design team and the publications team. And the graphic design team, sorry, they also can actually, create our signage. Then we also have a web team and multimedia team and exhibition design team. So everybody has these multitude of digital assets, and that's why we needed to implement a DAM. Now, as a DAMS administrator, I'm part of the digital transformation team, and we've gone through a very large digital transformation at QAGOMA over the last few years. And this is a complicated diagram explaining the different systems that we've implemented over that time. And our DAMS is actually fairly central to that implementation. We also needed to know, when we went to implement our DAMS, what information we wanted stored there. And you will have obviously all heard of the term single point of truth. Our single point of truth is usually the collection management system. So especially when you're dealing with things like artworks, we trust the collection management system, which is managed by our curators and registration and conservation teams. So they actually put information in there that can travel down to the images and other digital assets that we create of the artworks. And then that metadata flows out towards the things like our online presence with the collection online, and also for our websites as well. So we always trust the CMS when it comes to artworks, but there are other assets that are born that are not necessarily artworks. So we've got a huge amount of event photography that goes along with every exhibition. So not of that information is collected from the CMS. So that's where the DAMS is a single point of truth for that sort of information. So when we went on this roadmap for how we were going to implement the DAMS, well, obviously we did what everybody else does, is we went and actually did a procurement process. And once we selected one, we actually built the infrastructure with the help of the vendor and the IT team. And then we also needed to find out, well, what have we got? And who uses digital assets, and how are they doing it? So we started by creating a whole heap of workshops with each department. We've got roughly around about 30 different departments within QAGOMA. And then once we found out what people are doing, we then said, okay, what have we got? And how do we get ingested? And let's make some priorities about how we're going to go about doing that. And then we're in this next phase of continuous improvement. So where we currently are at, we've roughly got around about 300 users within the system now that have been trained, and they, well, on average is between 70 and 80 people who are actually logging on every week. And that's from all the departments. It's not heavily on, it's on one department. It's essentially nearly all departments log on and use the dams in some way. We're at about 750,000 images now in the dams, and a lot of them are artworks, but not the bulk of them. A lot of the bulk of our works are activities, and that our activities relate to things like gallery spaces, gallery exhibition views, and then the events as well. So we've got 390-odd thousand event photography photos back to 1982. So, and as I said, every department is using the system. So we had to then work out, okay, let's rank them, who's most important. And then, as you can see, everybody's just as important as each other. So how did we go about working out what would be the best for return of investment, to say, okay, let's have a quick win. Let's show that this is why we needed the dams, and what is the biggest pain point. So we went out and did those workshops. We found out what people shared with each other, like who were their clients, what they gave to other people, what they got received from other people. We also tried to find out where people were spending a lot of time doing what I would call red tape, or the old school way of doing things, old forms and that sort of thing. We found out where those pain points were, and to understand like what was taking most of the time and how we might be able to work smarter. So like I said, it's not only what we were actually delivering to people, but where we were actually getting back, what we were getting back from people. So here, for example, we've got the imaging team, and they would be providing a lot of images to different departments and at different resolutions, and have all these different requests coming through. But then they were also receiving information from those departments for what to do with those files. So having a look at the landscape, we basically identified like the low-hanging fruit, as we called it, of creating a publication. And the imaging team had a huge amount of demand put on them with the creation of a publication. What I mean by that is they, for example, may have created high-resolution TIFFs, which were being done for our digital preservation. That's all fine and well, but the one department like curatorial may need a small resolution file because they were putting it into Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, and so they were managing the creation of publication in that way. And then they would send that email off to somebody who in publications who may needed like a higher res version of the file, so they could actually see whether or not it was going to be good enough for the publication. And so there another set of duplicates had needed to be made. And then the graphic design team at the end of the process, once they were told this is what we're going with, well, they needed to go back to imaging and say, hey, I need the really high res versions of these files. And they then needed to go through the list, find the ones that they wanted, find the files and create the high res TIFFs for the files to be sent out to the graphic design team, which then obviously could have caused a delay. So all of these things were the issues that came up along the way. Red tape, like I said, and the problem was that if somebody was provided with a set of images in a shared drive, a network drive, invariably what they would do is they would make a copy of them. So they would actually go and grab those files and copy them to their own network drive for their department. So instantly you've got a duplication of data. And then you've got what I would call files in the wild. So that means that if metadata is changed on one file, it's not going to be across on the other file because the derivatives are all over the place. So this was our low-hanging fruit. So how could we actually make this process a lot smoother with the implementation of our dams? So what we said was, okay, who's got the biggest impact for this problem? Was the imaging team. They don't have time to do all of these processes and meet the demands of those other departments, like at the snap of the fingers. So what we did is we created a project area. And that project area within our dams was a place where the curators, for example, they're the ones who would be speaking to the artists. So they would then sometimes be provided with hard drives or emailed or Dropbox or some sort of way of getting those files to the curators. And the curators would then put that into the project area. But so does the publications team. So the publications team may also be speaking to the artist and then be given a whole heap of what we call contextual images of the artist working on the process or working on the artwork in their studio. So they needed a spot to put their information in, which is great. So they went to the same spot, which instantly meant that the metadata that we put on the files was going to be then shared across those two silos. And so they're working in the project area. And then finally, once these two departments were happy, and there are other departments involved, obviously, but once they were happy with the layout of the publication, how it was going to look, then all they needed to do was create in our dams, it's called an album. You could actually create an album of those selected images and then send that album off to the graphic design team with all of the captions that have been approved from the publications department, all of the information about the image from curatorial. And that album then meant that the graphic design team had a process that they could actually then just click a button and it would go and find the high-res TIFFs and deliver it to their InDesign project folder so that they could then start working on the publication. What that meant was that imaging pretty much was removed from the process once they provided the images. Now, don't get me wrong, this does seem like a simple process. There is a lot of complexity to it, and we did hide that. But the thing that this created, this project area, resulted in some great wins for us. One was we had less reliance on the imaging team. The credits were all on the files with the captioning when they were supplied files, and also the files that we created by the imaging team, we were able to then sync that with our collection management system. So like I said before, the single point of truth, we were able to pull down that metadata automatically. And so that integration was key to getting that information there quickly and trusted. It also meant there were no duplicates, no files in the wild, and very little need for derivatives because people are all working within the dams on the high-res imagery. We were able to, because of that, be able to protect our digital assets and make sure that they didn't go anywhere. They were nice and safe. We could control the access and the permissions with the dams. So, for example, if an artwork was then told, somebody said, you're not allowed to use it for this particular purpose, this is only for the publication, we're able to use the dams to say, okay, marketing team and media team can use these files for promotion, but not these ones. And then we're able, this project area has enabled us to have a collaborative space, reduce the number of email or files going left, right, and center, removing the need for a lot of those spreadsheets, and we create those workflows through what we call actions. Then the publications team can get the files to the graphic design team like without delay. There's no delay. They just send an album, and then the graphic design team have got this magical button that they call the green button with a rocket on it, and they click on it, and it just magically makes those files appear. Like I said, don't get me wrong, this is a complicated process under the hood. And this is an example of the diagram that we created. Now, I'm not going to go into depth for this, but as you can see here, there's that green button with the rocket on it, and this is an album that's created. And this little line here indicates that there's no more going backwards and forwards to create files. The imaging team can, on occasions, be asked to check files to see whether or not they think that the file is too soft for their professional advice. But that, in the whole, this has cut out a lot of the extra work that the imaging teams had to do. And then hopefully at the end of the process is that we end up with a publication, a PDF, and also the assets that we used in those files. We can link that to the finished PDF of the electronic version of the printed publication, so that then when somebody rings up and says, hey, I would like to have the image on page 22 of the AIR project catalogue, then yeah, we can actually do a search for that catalogue, look for that page number, and it will actually find that file. So in our implementation, the things that we've learned about breaking down those silos, well, these are my top 8 things that I found. 1, hide the complexity. So that was a really, really complicated diagram that you saw before, but only show people what they need. If you've got the ability in your DAM system to be able to turn buttons off that they don't, so it's not in their face, do it. If you can do that, it's going to remove the fear of technology, and it's not going to overwhelm people. Just give them what they need, and because that will confuse them if they've got too many buttons. And then use integrations if it will make life easier. So our DAMs, we have got integrated, like I said, with our collection management system, but we also have now got it sending images to a collection online, and we use APIs and we use webhooks to do those sorts of things under the hood. To them, it's just a button that they click. So the metadata, number 2 is metadata can make your DAM sing. And what I mean by that is that it's important to try and get people past the deer in the fog lights sort of look that you get when people mention the word metadata. If you can try and explain to them that how metadata can actually make your system better, because you can actually create that button and automate it if they've put that information into the system. There is an old information management term called garbage in, garbage out, but I like to term it as gold in, gold out. And the reason for that is, you know, if you've got a great robust metadata, which you would have heard from before, then you've got a system that you can actually do those automations and actually create green buttons. Number 3 is to be patient with change management. It's like old adage from Field of Dreams, you build it, they will come. It's all about communication. People are generally afraid of change, really. And if it's technology that they don't quite understand, that adds to that. So part of breaking down the silos is by making it less painful for people to be able to learn something. And also only introduce something when they need it. So workshop the ideas and let people know that they have been heard. So quite often, like I said, it's a change management issue, and they're maybe afraid of the technology. They may be afraid of the fact that, you know, I'm going to be replaced, or you haven't thought about this. Well, give people that space to actually air their grievances, and then take a step back and have a look at it in a big picture. Don't be precious about ideas. If you know, the best ideas will always rise to the top, and they will evolve. So you may do something and implement something in a particular way. Don't get wedded to it. because there may be, it might mean that, yeah, okay, we need to do it this way so that we can actually get the bulk of the work done and implemented, like a huge ingest with this amount of metadata on. But then you may find that during that process, you will then identify and learn new issues that will arise, and you might have a better idea. Somebody else might have a better idea as well. So take that on board. And so to do that, build in a modular way. So like our little puzzle piece here, so that if you need to chop and change a particular part of the puzzle or the workflow, you can easily do that. The most important thing are the ins and the outs, so that you're making sure that the information that's provided the process is the same, and then you are actually then providing the next stage that information. How you do it, you might be able to get some efficiencies from changing that part of the process. Get supported, get buy-in from your IT team. This is so important. And to show them what's important for them. So what's in it for them is that if you help improve the information literacy of your different departments in certain ways, what you'll find is that they'll get more used to using computers and systems, and then they actually get more confident with using systems. So then they start to rely less because they learn how to problem solve themselves. And that reduces calls to IT, and that's what they love. Continue learning, learn the software. It's so important to keep up to date. And the main reason for that with breaking down a silo is that if you've got like a play area, like a staging area where you can test features that are up and coming, you may have a person who's a stalwart or in a department that just will not change, and they might say, I'm not doing it that way because the system does not do this. Well, having a staging area, when the system maybe develops that feature, you could actually then test it with the input that you've received from the person who is not moving, and then you'll be able to then say, hey, I've got this system, I've got this opportunity here, I'd like your advice on it, and then show them and how it works. And then you're also giving them some ownership of that as well. But yeah, keep up to date with the software and know what's coming. Have a great relationship with your vendor. This is really important because you never know when something's going to go wrong and you're going to need their help. And like all vendors, they've got many clients. So where you fit in that list as to the response time is pretty important. So make sure you have a great relationship with your vendor. And then number 8 is to continue to improve and to build those bridges. So like I said, we're at a stage of continuous improvement now. And what we're doing is we're periodically catching up with the departments. We've got a new version of our dams is about to be released. I'm in the process of testing that, and I'm billing that as a little bit like we use the terms dams 1.0 and 2.0 earlier on today. Well, this is we're not changing software as such, we're just getting the newer version of it. And so there's all those new features, and I'm billing that as dams 2.0, and so these are the new features. We're 2 years down the track. What's worked, what hasn't worked, and let me know. And so this monthly process has really worked out well with more and more people joining the system. And as you can see from that little graph on the right, like the lighter line is our average weekly users for last year. And as you can see already this year, it started to grow. So find out where your departments are talking, find out where the pain points are, where they're spending most of their time. And then through these meetings, like I said, let them be heard, let them have their vent to you, because like I said, all cream rises to the top, and you'll find that the departments will actually be, they will own those changes because it was their idea in the first place that you've implemented. So the future, we are continuing to evolve, and we are improving our workflows, even our publications workflow. I showed you earlier, we've already changed that a couple of times even this year. the emerging technologies that are coming through. So our new version of software allows us to embed 3D models and video and some extra library systems and integrate more. So, and that's what we're doing, is we're further integrating with different systems to make it so that people don't have to jump from one system to the other. Or more importantly, if they are jumping from one system to the other, it's just a click of a button rather than a log out, log in, log out, log in. And that's what we're sort of doing at the moment. So, Andrew, that's pretty much the presentation.
Gosh, bang on time there, Shane. It was almost to the second. Well done. Really interesting. Thank you very much for your presentation. I love to hear the stories of ideas through to iteration and some practical solutions as to who to do that well. I've got one question that's come into the chat bot from someone else. I have a few of my own, but apologies if you've missed it in the first part. How is your role as DAM administrator different from the IT team and cultural imaging team?
Well, it's funny, but being a DAMS administrator is an interesting role that's evolved over the last few years, and I've heard in other people's presentations. Well, you need skills in sort of all of those areas. So you need to have be able to communicate to those different departments. So the imaging team, for example, they're concentrating on creating imagery, and that's a job on its own. So there is but you need to be able to communicate with them and understand things like compression, and to talk to them about the metadata needs that they have and the workflows. And then with IT, for example, well, that's there are different specialized areas in IT. So I meet once a week with our IT department and our head of imaging, and the two people I meet in our IT department are our system administrator and our network administrator. So they are both important. They do very different roles. So to say it's all part of IT, it's like medicine. You've got specialists and you've got GPs.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're probably more of an application specialist, as I would call it. Like you understand your application, its purpose, its intent, what the users need, and your job is to translate that and communicate. Like my team does. We have application specialists that need to talk to our engineering teams and our serverless teams and our other bits and pieces, because it's understanding the people's use cases and how that translates through.
The other thing on that, Andrew, is just to not forget or discount the digital asset management part of the role, and that librarianship part of the role, and archivist, because quite often some departments will say, hey, it's just a system and an application system role, but that sort of discounts the whole asset management side of things. And it's a collection of digital assets, and it's a collection of collections of digital assets, and being able to and so
sorry, to your point, you are correct. Whilst it's an application specialist, it's a very specific application specialist that's in digital asset management, and you need to understand digital assets, how they're created, how they're reused, or the file formats, the structures, but also, just as importantly, how to construct taxonomies, metadata values, search criteria, all those other things, and how to maintain it. So yeah, it's a specialist bunch of skills, and obviously people become DAM administrators from different parts of organizations. It depends on the individual and the path that they take. Top consideration for a gallery or library about to start with building and implementing a DAM. What's the top consideration? State of the assets where they currently are. Where do you best start in terms of what is the number one consideration to allow you to get started?
What are you trying to achieve? is essentially step back and have a look at where you're wanting to go, rather than just saying, oh, we need a system because everybody else has got one. Step back and find out, what have we got? what are we trying to do with it?
Yeah.
And the answer to those questions will be varied from every one of those departments, like you mentioned before. So, and then that gives you a sort of a roadmap.
So is that a readiness assessment? I mean, you need to know what you need to do, but you've also got to assess the readiness of, the content that's there, right? There's no
absolutely.
point saying, let's start up a dam if the content's not in a ready state to get in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and that part of that, what are we trying to achieve, involves things like, well, we need to do this, but in what format does it need to be at the other end? And how many different types, how many different derivatives do we need, for example, for a website? Digital preservation, conservation needs files for this purpose, registration needs it for this purpose. And so that's what I mean by saying step back, find out what you're trying to do, and then you can actually then say, what have we got? Because then you can do the A to B. So and digital preservation is so key as well. If you start with the best version of that, then you can create workflows for many derivatives.
Fantastic. That's great. Great simple presentation. Can I get a copy of it? We'll share a link of the presentation afterwards. That's great. I think I've got all those user questions. Yeah, look, one question I had, and it's just maybe it's just a personal, you had so many different partners and so many different sort of teams using it in different ways. How do you manage the ongoing sort of standard operating procedures, or changes in HR and changes, and how do you what's your mechanism by ensuring that there's a continuous uptake of understanding not only that the dam is there and what it's used for, but making sure that people are following the standard procedures for using the systems?
Well, that comes back to that periodical catch-up, the communication. So those
going around to each one of those teams and listening.
And it only has to be sort of like half an hour a month, and if people are busy, and with the departments, quite a few of our departments, people travel now that we can again, and so they don't necessarily all need to come, because you can record the session because we use Teams for our group communication, and they can record the session. We can actually then keep track record of the requests. We've got a project management software that we use and I use that to list all of the issues. And the important thing for me in that regard is that there might be 2 or 3 departments that have the same need. So instead of me creating 3 different workflows, I might be able to consolidate that and put it into one workflow, and then just change the names to protect the innocent, or I can just cookie cut it. And that comes from experience as well, from having implemented those systems in the past, knowing, okay, let's step back and look at the big picture. Am I creating a rod for myself here do I need to support, or is it going to be easier for all involved if we just build it in this way?
Okay, well, we've come to the end of our event for this year. Again, Shane, thank you so much for your time today, and excellent presentation. A lot of detail in there, and covering a lot of the the practical guides of as you said, building bridges. And thank you to everyone who's attended today. That wraps up Dam Asia Pacific for 2023. Just a reminder that the recordings from the events are accessible from the agenda tab. So in your Hublio platform, it will be available, and under that agenda tab, you'll be able to go back and watch those in your own time. For those of you who've asked me questions, I noticed a few of them are anonymous, so unfortunately I can't reply to you individually. But if there's anything that you want to ask of me directly, my details are available through the platform, and you can find me on LinkedIn as well. So feel free to contact me there. Obviously, and if you could take 1 minute to tell us about the post-event survey, there's a link in the community tab where you can go in and take that survey and tell us what you thought of today's event. Henry Stewart is finally open for in-person events, and their DAM event in Los Angeles in March and DAM Europe in June. And I'm hoping to visit the New York one in September myself this year. We hope to see some of you throughout the year in person. And hopefully we can do this ourselves in our own region in person very soon. Thank you again to Open Text as our sponsor for helping us put this together. And from me, thank you once again. And we will see you at our next event very soon. Bye for now.